The sun rises slow over the Wasatch Mountains, painting the valleys in strokes of gold and shadow, as if the sky itself is holding its breath. In the quiet cradle of Sundance, Utah Place, carved from wild aspens and whispered "wins one" of cinema's quiet giants, has slipped away. Robert Redford, the man who turned the silver screen into a mirror for America's restless soul, passed in his sleep on September 16, 2025. At the age of 89, not in some sterile hospital room or the frenzy of a city set, but right here, in the home he built as a fortress against the world. Surrounded by the scent of pine and the hush of family, he left us, leaving behind a legacy that feels as timeless as the peaks that cradled his dreams. Imagine a boy in the sun-baked sprawl of 1930s Santa Monica, California, where the ocean crashes like a promise unkept. Charles Robert Redford Jr. entered the world on August 18, 1936. The son of Charles Sr., a milkman turned accountant for Standard Oil, and Martha Hart, a homemaker whose gentle spirit masked the grit of immigrant roots. The family scraped by in Van Nuys, a suburb where the air smelled of eucalyptus and ambition. Young Robert was a whirlwind, restless athletic, with eyes like polished amber that seemed to see straight through the ordinary. Baseball was his first love. He dreamed of diamond fields under stadium lights, swinging for the fences at Van Nuys High. But life had other scripts. Expelled from the University of Colorado for dodging classes in favor of skiing and sketching, he wandered Europe on a shoestring, sketching faces in Paris cafes and absorbing the raw pulse of art in Florence. Back home, grief struck early. His mother died after a difficult pregnancy when he was just 18, a loss that carved silence into his core, a theme that would echo through his films like a shadow. Art became his anchor. He studied at the Pratt Institute in New York, then the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, where his chiseled features and quiet intensity turned heads. The stage called First a Raw, unforgiving arena where he honed a presence that was less about bombast and more about the weight of a glance. Broadway's Tall Story in 1959 marked his debut, but television was the proving ground. There he was, slipping into skins that felt both familiar and electric. The sly gambler on Maverick, the sharp lawyer on Perry Mason, the eerie stranger in Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Who could forget his chilling turn as the angel of death in The Twilight Zone as Nothing in the Dark, coaxing an old woman from her fear of the end? Or the relentless agent in The Untouchables. These were glimpses, fleeting frames of a man who could embody charm or menace with a flick of an eyelid. But the small screen was a cage for someone like Redford. He craved the vastness of film, where stories could breathe like mountain air. The leap came in 1962 with War Hunt, a gritty Korean war drama that introduced him as a feral soldier, all coiled energy and unspoken rage. It was a spark in the dark. Then came The Flood, inside Daisy Clover in 1965, where he played a sailor masking heartbreak beside Natalie Wood. This property is condemned the next year, a steamy Southern tale with the same co-star. Directed by Sidney Pollack, the start of a lifelong brotherhood. But 1967's Barefoot in the Park changed the game of screwball comedy opposite Jane Fonda, where Redford's deadpan wit cracked open his matinee idol shell. He was the uptight lawyer to her free-spirited mess, and audiences fell hard for the alchemy. Fonda later called him the most disciplined actor I ever worked with, a man who prepared like a surgeon. Dissecting lines until they bled truth, the 1970s crowned him king. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in 1969 wasn't just a film, it was a cultural earthquake. As the Sundance Kid, Redford rode beside Paul Newman's Butch, two outlaws freezing time in sepia frames, bantering through train robberies and Bolivian sunsets. "Who are those guys?" became a national shorthand for pursuit, for the American chase that never ends. The chemistry playful, profound grossed over $100 million, spawning T-shirts and timeless quotes. Redford's Sundance was no sidekick. He was the cool counterpoint, the gunslinger with a poet's soul. It birthed a friendship with Newman that lasted decades, two icons trading stories over poker and politics. From there, the hits cascaded, The Way We Were in 1973, where he tangled with Fonda's Katie in a romance laced with McCarthy-era shadows. Their rain-soaked kiss, a celluloid ache. The Sting that same year, a con artist's caper with Newman again, won 7 Oscars and etched Redford's grinning rogue into eternity. He dove deeper with The Great Gatsby in 1974. Gatsby's longing gaze across Long Island sound a mirror to his own elusive heart. Then All the President's Men in 1976, whereas Bob Woodward, he peeled back Watergate's layers beside Dustin Hoffman's Bernstein. It wasn't glamour, it was grit late nights in fluorescent-lit offices, the thrill of truth unearthed. The film won for Oscars, but Redford's quiet fury, his dogged whisper of "follow the money," captured journalism's soul. Critics called it the most important film of the decade, a civic lesson wrapped in thriller's pulse. Outlaw Josie Wales in 1976 let him choose scenery as a Civil War avenger, while The Electric Horseman in 1979 paired him with Fonda again, a fading cowboy chasing authenticity in neon Vegas. These weren't just roles. They were reckoning's tales of men adrift in a changing America, chasing myths that crumbled underfoot. Yet Redford was never content to bask. Behind the Golden Boy facade, a director stirred. Ordinary People in 1980 was his Lipperoff family drama about grief's quiet implosion. Starring Mary Tyler Moore and Timothy Hutton, it mirrored his own scars. The silence after his mother's death, the unspoken bonds of loss. The film swept the Oscars, including Best Picture and Director for Redford. His acceptance speech, a murmur of thanks to the voices we can't always hear. Critics hailed it as a miracle of restraint, proof that his eye for story cut as deep as his face charmed. Hollywood's churn chafed him. In 1971, he bought 5,000 acres in Utah's Provo Canyon, a rugged paradise of streams and peaks he named Sundance after his outlaw alter ego. It wasn't escape, it was reclamation. "I needed a place to breathe," he once said, eyes on the horizon. From those slopes rose the Sundance Institute in 1981, a haven for storytellers shunned by studios. The film festival followed in 1985, starting as a modest gathering in a ski lodge. Now, a global beacon drawing 100,000 souls yearly. Redford championed the underdogs. Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction premiered there in 1994, launching a revolution. Zhao's Nomadland won in 2020. He birthed the Sundance Channel in 1996, a pipeline for indies and studios that nurtured voices like Ava DuVernay's. Cinema should challenge, not comfort, he insisted. Turning Sundance into a forge for films on climate, race, identity mirrors to the world's fractures, his activism burned fierce. An environmental warrior, he co-founded the Institute for Resource Management, fought oil pipelines, and served on the Natural Resources Defense Council. In the 1980s, he battled to save Utah's Red Rock canyons from strip mines. By the 2000s, he rallied against the Keystone XL, his voice a steady drum for the earth. "We've borrowed this planet from our children," he'd say, planting trees at Sundance like acts of defiance. Politically, he backed Democrats, narrated Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth in 2006, and used his clout to amplify the marginalized, yet he shunned the spotlight's glare, preferring fly fishing in hidden streams or sketching wildflowers at dawn. Later years softened his edges without dimming his fire. The Natural, in 1984, cast him as an aging ball player chasing one last swing, a nod to his own youth. Out of Africa, in 1985, brought romance amid Kenyan savannas opposite Meryl Streep. He directed Quiz Show in 1994, a sly takedown of 1950s TV scandals, and The Horse Whisperer in 1998, where he tamed scars on horseback. Reunions with Fonda in Our Souls at Night, 2017, whispered of enduring bonds, while The Old Man and the Gun, 2018, let him bow out as a silver-haired thief, grinning at 82. "It's my last," he vowed, though his spirit suggested otherwise. Family was his North Star, a constellation marked by joy and sorrow. Married to Lola Van Wagenen from 1958 to 1985, they raised 4. Scott gone at 5 months to SIDS in 1959, a wound that never scarred over. Shauna, an artist. James Jamie, a documentarian who battled liver cancer until 2020. And Amy, the quiet anchor. Divorce brought reinvention Kirsten Hayes in 1988, ended 1995. Then Sibyl Chagars in 2009, a painter whose calm mirrored his own. 7 grandchildren, wild-haired echoes of his mischief, filled Sundance with laughter. "They keep me honest," he'd chuckle, teaching them to cast lines into rushing creeks. Now, in the wake of his passing, Sundance holds its breath for the farewell he scripted himself. No grand procession, no velvet ropes or tear-streaked stars. Redford dreamed small, intimate a circle of kin under aspen leaves, far from paparazzi flashes. His wife Sibyl, daughters Shauna and Amy, and those 7 grandchildren will gather soon in the canyon's heart. A simple rite. Perhaps readings from Frost, songs from the festival's troubadours, hands clasped around a fire pit where stories once spun late into night. No parade of Alistairs, a close friend confided. That was his nightmare. Peace, not pomp. The site, his Sundance home. That 1971 purchase turned sanctuary, where he raised kids, hosted visionaries, and whispered to the wind. No public service, no echoing halls, just family. Folding his light into theirs, scattering ashes where the river meets the ridge, tributes cascade like autumn leaves. Jane Fonda, voice cracking in a video. "He hit me hard, my partner in crime," in laughs. In Fights for the Planet, Meryl Streep, one of the lions, has passed, graceful to the end. Leonardo DiCaprio, a hero, on screen and off his environmental firelit mine. Quentin Tarantino, Sundance gave me wings. Redford was the wind. From Sundance's slopes, fans murmur prayers, laying wildflowers at the Institute's gates. The festival relocated to Boulder in 2025 amid growth's growing pains. Vows attribute reel clips of rebels he championed, flickering under starlight. Redford's gone, but his echo lingers in the flicker of an indie screen, the rush of a trout stream, the quiet stand against the tide. He was the boy who sketched dreams, the outlaw who outran time, the steward who planted more than he took. In Sundance's embrace, as family bids their private goodbye, we remember not the icon, but the man who taught us to look deeper, to chase the horizon with open eyes. Rest easy, Robert. The The mountains keep your secrets now.